Hello, everyone, and welcome to Move, Crush, Count. This is the podcast where we learn how achievers are changing business growth strategies. So we're here to help you grow your business. We're here to show you how to move the crowd, how to crush the competition, how to count the money. Today's interview is sponsored by J&L Marketing. J&L is a digital and direct marketing agency that delivers results with strategies that are going to help you outsmart competitors so you don't have to outspend them. The title of today's interview is Finding Business Inspiration at Monterey Car Week. And I owe a lot to this guy, my guest. My name is Scott Joseph. Today I'm interviewing good friend Todd Blue. He is a true business leader. And we're going to talk about finding inspiration and creating new opportunities. And he introduced me to something, Monterey Car Week, that I had an absolute blast. So first, let me welcome Todd Blue.
Thanks, Scott. It was fun. It was great. I haven't seen you since.
No.
So we had a ball, and I'm glad you loved it. I was hoping, you never know, but I took a pretty good bet to say that I thought you would love it because I don't think I've ever had anybody go that was disappointed.
Well, you've got an incredible track record as an entrepreneur, as a business leader. You've successfully started and sold multiple businesses at high levels, I should point out. You're the type of guy in talking with you and being around you. I can see the way you dress today. I can tell by the office behind you, you pay attention to details. All right. I remember our first interview. I was down there, and I've never been in a dealership where every little thing was exactly where it was supposed to be and so pristine. It was awesome.
That was fun. That was fun.
But you were kind enough to invite me to Monterey Car Week. I had no idea what to expect. You had me when you said, hey, you go to the Derby every year. This is the Kentucky Derby for the auto industry. But we're going to talk a little bit about that and how it doesn't necessarily have to be exclusive to auto, right? And so let's get to this. We're here live. We're blasting out to YouTube, or LinkedIn, Facebook, different channels on all that. So if people have questions as we're going, type them in. I'll do my best to put them on the screen. Not all channels deliver the questions right into my StreamYard feed. So sometimes we got to go back and answer those later, but we try to be as interactive as possible on this show. But let's let our audience get a quick introduction to who you are, what's your background, your education, how you got started, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Sure. I'll be real quick. First of all, I'm from the same place where you're from. Well, are you from Louisville, by the way, originally? Are you from Ohio?
Yeah, I'm from Cincinnati originally, yeah. But I've been in Louisville most of my life now.
There we go. Yeah. So we're definitely from the same area. I definitely, like you, grew up a Cincinnati Reds fan. But, from Louisville, grew up, went to George Washington University, studied international business, worked in Chicago after school in metals trading and commodities. Came back to Louisville, thought that I would be there the rest of my life, went to work in a family business that was also related to that, did some metals, some recycling, railroad car parts services, steel mill services, ended up buying that business with my brother, and then sold that business to a public company, worked for that public company, and then finished that employment obligation, and then did some entrepreneurial stuff in Louisville, had some great partners in Louisville, and did some real estate, did some fast food restaurants and other things, but was never really passionate about anything. And not so coincidentally about this conversation today and inspiration. This is the absolute truth. My first introduction to Pebble Beach and to Monterey Car Week was with Jim Patterson, who's from Louisville, Kentucky, who's been a business mentor of mine and an inspiration. He's an incredible entrepreneur also. And he brought me to Pebble and introduced me to it, which then led to collecting cars, which then led to finding my way to the franchise automobile business. So it's not so coincidental that the title of today's show is a real thing, and it really was part of my inspiration.
Well, I got to tell you, when I went out there, I don't know how you have to go with your eyes shut to not be inspired and not at least have some things click in your head where you could sit there and think, I could integrate this into some of my business practices, or this gives me an idea to do this or that. I can't wait to dig in a little bit with you and find out what some of those were. So let me ask you this. You've already told us when you started going to Monterey. Let me ask you this, though. What were some of the initial, because I'm a rookie, I've only been one time. So what were some of the rookie mistakes you made early on? And then, how have you changed over the years in terms of how you first approach it to now?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a great question. So it is a complete overload of everything, and not just about cars, which we'll come to later, because I think it's an incredible inspiration no matter what industry you're in, especially if you're involved in luxury, but you don't even really have to be involved in luxury, but we'll hold that for a second question. But initially, you go and you see the list of things to check, and whether it's in publications that tell you what to do, or little brochures, and they're all good, but there are so many choices that over time, and I've now been there almost 20 years in a row, you hone in on the things that not only inspire you, but are the most fun. And I mean, there are hundreds and hundreds of things to do in a 5-day period. And I mean that, hundreds of events, sponsorships. So over time, I think, to specifically answer your question, I chose less things, and the things that were, the most fun and most relevant to me. But you can do a lot of things.
So let's get specific. I mean, when you're going out, at what point, because you end up buying a lot of dealerships and successfully exited those, and we'll talk a little bit about, I do want to get into, because I mentioned the level of detail that I want to get into that a little bit. But at what point was Monterey a leading factor that got you wanting to get deeper into that business to the level you did?
I think why? I think so because some of my first exposures to Monterey were being entertained by manufacturers. Specifically, I'll be honest, Mercedes was the first manufacturer that entertained me. I actually was never a Mercedes dealer, even though I always aspired to be one, or maybe one day would love to be one. But they were the first company that entertained us, and it was incredible. And the experience they provided was, like you said, it was a Kentucky Derby experience, a Super Bowl experience, a heavyweight championship experience in Las Vegas, and how they treated us, and the dinners, and the suite, and the access to things was incredible. And that inspired me to want to be around the industry, and obviously in that case, to be around luxury.
Yeah. What was it? I want to jump forward a little bit. So I brought up the level of detail at your stores. I know you jumped into the luxury market in talking to you prior, mainly because you felt like it was an industry you knew, and you could take this in the automotive world and really build on that and cater to that clientele. So what were some of the things that you took from Monterey Car Week that, in terms of the client experience with your dealerships, how did that work?
Some of it's funny, and I'll give you an example. You would be surprised how little it takes to show appreciation to people, specifically in luxury. And we always joked about this, and this could be a metaphor, this little example, but if someone would come in and buy a $300,000 car, and you gave them a baseball cap, a Porsche baseball cap, as an example, you'd be shocked at the loyalty that can bring. Now, again, that is a very, very funny, small, metaphoric example. But Monterey, for example, you arrive and you get to your hotel, and you have a package of swag or gifts on your bed, or gift certificates, or the layout of the events for the weekend. Every decision that you would normally have to make is made for you if you sign up for the right kind of packages. How you're treated, your transportation, your accommodations, your meals, and maybe most importantly, and I'd love you to talk on this a little, and I'm not interviewing you, but I'd love you to chime in on this. The people that you meet, and especially the connections and friendships, they're real and they're fun, and again, it's like a Kentucky Derby. So I think all of that together creates a loyalty to brands, and that's a lot of what I learned.
Yeah, I'll touch on that because part of this, I think anytime you want to create some new opportunities or come up with new ideas, I think it's important that you surround yourself with the right people. Makes that a lot easier. And I did not know anybody going out there. I knew you. Um, I ran into a few people I knew.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were going to be there. Um, but the hospitality with the package you set me up with through Bentley was unbelievable. And so you're out there in the inn at Spanish Bay, and at the night after all the festivities or the whatever activities were going on,
Yeah.
you know, I do cigars. And I enjoy a bourbon. Of course, that week it was all Macallan with Bentley. So, but not too bad when they're pouring unlimited Macallan 18s for you
Yes.
all weekend long.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so but the conversations around those fire pits were unbelievable. So you know the funny story. You know the Tiffany watch. It's the one with the blue face. I think.
Paddock.
Right? I don't know yeah. It's like $6.5 million or something like that. So I'm sitting there, and up walks, I think it was a Bentley client. Up walks a guy, and everyone's looking at his watch. All right, and it's that watch, and I'm not a big watch guy, so I don't know much about it, but I'm obviously this is a big time watch, and he's showing it to everybody, but that's not what's amazing about the story. The amazing part is another guy walked up and he had the same damn watch. There were two $6.5 million watches there. I was like, you got to be kidding. What's the odds of that?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
but the level of conversations, because inevitably everyone around those fire pits, they're talking about business. They're talking about
Right.
what's working for them, new opportunities. And you get caught up in that. And my mind started spinning, which gave me an idea of something I wanted to do. And I can't say it on here, but that opportunity was not available anymore. But it doesn't mean I'm going to stop pursuing it.
It's not just, and it is fabulous luxury and great times, but those conversations are inspiring, and it's fun because everybody's guard is down. No one feels like they're in a business environment. They're not in a boardroom. They're not at a convention. They're not competitive. They're in a let's have fun for the weekend. And so it just flows so much easier. It's really lovely. It's lovely.
Well, I ran into, I don't know if you know Brian Benstock. He's a Honda dealer up in the Northeast, up in New York area. He's usually battling 1-2 for volume in the United States, and ran into him at Quail.
Yep.
And we were both, that was his first time. And he was there invited by Acura because they also have an Acura dealership. And we were very upset at ourselves for being in this industry, in this business for so long. How is it possible we had never attended or even thought to attend this? And we were blown away by it. I think he might have ended up buying a car there. I don't know. He may have. You start getting the itch.
It's what happens. It's what happens.
So,
for sure.
But that is something, I plan to bring my wife. I plan to go every year now.
Yeah.
I'm bringing my wife, Trish, next year for sure. The whole time I'm on the phone with her, I said, you're going to love this. This is exactly the way Todd described it. Yeah. But getting back to those conversations, they are extremely inspiring. I was talking to a bunch of people, and I think it's important because every industry's got real big events and big conferences, but there's something very unique about these smaller, more intimate or more exclusive type of events that open the door to those type of conversations. Because you had, at any one time, there were 20 of us around one of those fire pits, all different backgrounds, all different types of businesses. Really, it wasn't just dealers.
That's a great point.
That's what made it great, because we're sitting there sharing things that are either working or not working. We're talking about the economy. We're talking about various things, what we see on the horizon, and it's great to get the different perspectives from all these business giants, business leaders, and get their 2 cents on everything. And just I can't, well, you've been there. I mean, the level of conversation is worth the price of admission alone.
Without question. And like you said, a lot of people think, oh, it's just for car collectors or dealers or people that are related to classic cars. I mean, think about it. You have all kinds of, not just luxury. You have Goldman Sachs has a suite and an entertainment complex. Rolex, the clothing companies. It's incredible, and they bring a world that's completely different than automotive. And like you said, those people are from all different parts of the world, all different industries, coalescing in that Monterey Peninsula for one weekend. And it's inspiring.
Oh gosh, it was unbelievable. We ran into a few times. I got to tell you what happened to me on Sunday. So we're out at Pebble Beach, and what you set us up with on that package, right? I mean, you described it as the 50-yard line. It's really I describe it as the finish line to the Kentucky Derby. You're right there. You're overlooking the 18th green to Pebble.
For sure.
And these cars are rolling up, and the announcers are all bringing it up. So I'm getting my food, and I'm coming outside, and I'm looking for a place to sit. All right. And one of the people, so all weekend long, Bentley's driving us around in their cars, right? Chauffeuring everybody around. And I happened one night to share a ride with a woman from Hawaii, and she was a nice lady, and she was a Bentley client, and got to talking. And so she saw me looking, and she goes, "Oh, we have an open seat." So I go down and I sit next to her.
So nice.
Unbelievable. I'm sitting there for about.
And you gotta set the picture for your audience today. You're talking about not just the 50-yard line. You're probably talking about the 10th row in a luxury suite right over the podium.
Indoor, outdoor, food, drink. The Macallan's getting poured left and right. We've got fire pits going. We've got. It's hard to describe. I mean, I can't imagine a better setup. She offers me a seat, so I sit down, and I'm sitting there for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and another woman, her friend, she had brought with her, or they had traveled together for this event, is sitting right next to me. Very proper lady. She's from London, or from England, I believe, and speaks with that British accent, and very proper. And some people are like taking pictures of her, and they're asking for autographs. And I'm like, man,
who is that?
Yeah, I did want to ask, because I felt like I should know.
Yeah.
It was Cleo Shelby.
Wow.
Yeah. She's like the queen of these shows. All right. We talked for hours. I mean, it was unbelievable. I'm talking to her about Ford Ferrari movie. I'm getting all the inside scoop. What's real? What's fiction? It was great. But from beginning to end, there was not one moment I did not enjoy. And you gave great advice the whole time. So let's talk a little bit. I mean, obviously, one of the new opportunities that came about this for you, and the inspiration that came about this for you, was being in the car dealerships. Right. But now you started with the Porsche store in Houston, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Were any connections made at Monterey that introduced you to these other OEMs to where those transitions or those opportunities? Because there's very few dealers that go from one store to, I want to say, was it 19?
I think 18 when I
18 at the end. So inside of 10 years.
Yeah. 7.5 years.
Yeah. That is extreme fast growth, especially for someone that had never owned a store before. So for you to do that, were there any networking or relationships that were built during Monterey, or events like it? Doesn't even have to be Monterey, that led to these other opportunities that just to give you all that growth?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think potentially maybe, or it was as organic as it was strategic. And what I mean by that is, I'm a genuine car guy, genuine fascination with collecting, and a genuine collector before I was in the car business. And then, so the love and familiarity with the brand was not forced upon me by manufacturers or by the brands. And so the conversations and the mutual passion with the guys leading and running these companies were just organic and natural. Now, so if you had one Porsche store and then maybe you ended up with 4 at the end, and Lamborghini and this and that, maybe the growth within the brands, conversations led to opportunities in that way. But I can't really pinpoint it, but I would say it definitely didn't hurt, to say the least. And I think our commitment, which then evolved, and I don't want to spend too much time on the car business per se, but I will say this, that early on, we brought customers, and the manufacturers really appreciated that. Our customers loved it. It was, just like you, one of the favorite things they had ever attended, which then led to them, as you very well saw, buying the newest, latest thing that are a lot of times unveiled right at Pebble Beach, and everybody wants to get their orders in and put their deposits down. And that is not like a big sales thing. It keeps the passion aligned for the brands. And for better or for worse, I think all these manufacturers, when we first started, I would say there were probably 3 or 4 brands that were serious about Pebble Beach. I mean, literally, that's it. And now, as you saw, there's not a brand that's not there, including metaphorically Hyundai or Toyota or anybody. They're all there trying to attract everybody and maximize the output, which I think is good wisdom. And they know, even if they're not going to sell, let's just pick a car out, a Genesis SUV, they will develop relationships with people that will then see their brand and they'll associate that with luxury. And I think it's a great decision.
So I've got another Honda dealer, a good friend of mine. He's out in California. He's down in LA, and I was telling him about it, and he's like, "Oh man, you got to get me in." And I couldn't honestly say, "All right, here's, just make sure you get up there," because I've only known this one package, and so what I don't want, I don't want somebody else.
You started at the top. You started.
I wanted to make sure, so I'll buy the car. All right. So one thing that came out of this is I'm definitely getting the car, right? And so I'm going to negotiate that in the deal to where he gets the opportunity. He'll pay, but he gets the opportunity to come into it. So this dealer has apparently a lot of tickets up there. But let me just say this. That's another thing that I loved. And we talked a little bit about, the fire pits and the conversations. But as we were walking around Quail together, just the people you introduced me to was such a good community of it was I felt like I had known a lot of these guys. I mean, I was walking around the different booths with some of after you had left, some of these guys, and just pulling me around from exhibit to exhibit. It was incredible.
And I bet you, literally, maybe an extreme word, but you weren't bored 1 second the whole weekend. Not even close. Quite the opposite. You probably couldn't even digest all the things to digest all the weekend, which is why you and Trish need to go back for the next 10 years and see all the things you haven't even seen yet.
I haven't. And I was thinking about that. I could have spent an extra 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and not gotten through everything.
Right. Exactly.
It was
take incredible. The auctions. It's a whole other section. And I only bring it up because we're in a very tough economy right now, as we all know. And, these auctions, there were more classic cars consigned to these auctions by triple than have ever been consigned before. And everybody was talking about there's too many cars. They're not going to get sold. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. There's going to be a bloodbath. And all the auction companies set records, and it was mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if that was a diversification play, asset allocation, if people were doing an inflation hedge, or if the passion is just greater and bigger than ever. And by the way, it could be all of those things. But the reason I bring that up is not necessarily about cars or collecting cars. It is a temperature of what's happening in, for sure, the upper level of the economy, but then obviously the trickle down to what will happen and, how that might affect everything from the car business to every other industry. But leaving there, the strength was truly incredible. And I do think there was a component, if not a large component, of in a hedge against inflation. But that's a whole other very interesting play that, you don't even see the auctions. You can miss all the auctions and do 100 other things. And then next year go and say, I didn't even understand this world existed, which is incredible.
But I understood it existed. I did not understand it existed at this level.
Right.
Like not just some of the prices on these. I mean, I walked into that one auction you took me into that. I think when I walked out, the hammer came down at 6.9 million. And that was for a 55 Ferrari. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Nuts. It was nuts. Yeah. I mean, I'd never seen, usually, 10 years ago, you go and with 5 or 6 or 7 auction companies, there'd be 2 cars over 10 million. I think there were 30 cars over 10 million for sale on the weekend. Obviously, there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cars, but 30 cars that sold over $10 million in one weekend. That's insane. Again, just another component of what happens, whether it's, again, like we talked about, dealer entertainment, luxury entertainment, meals, chefs, watches, jewelry, fun, clothes. It was great.
Well, and when you go to Quail and you go to some of the other shows,
Quail's
you're also introduced to a lot of different sponsors.
Yes,
that you wouldn't, and it's important, I think, for anybody that's out there in marketing, and good marketers already know this, but you don't always have to, like, Peninsula Hotels were there, right? You'd already mentioned Rolex. There was, I forget which jet company, private jet company was there.
Few of them,
There were, so those are examples. It's not necessarily because, hey, we're a jet company or we're a hotel company, so that's not the car people is not our audience. No, that is your audience. That was wealthy people and have a similar interest. So you guys share an audience with this other vertical. And so I think it's important to note. So, and it gave me ideas for our own business, bourbon and cigars. And that's even one of the reasons you and I were sitting there talking, and you're like, you've got these events coming on, come out here, see what they're doing, and learn from that. And so it opened my eyes to some sponsor partners that don't necessarily sell directly to car dealers, but would benefit from the audience greatly.
Yes. Yes.
And so that was the first thing that popped out to me. And sometimes you get so stuck in the weeds of doing what you're doing. You gotta take a step back and kind of observe something a little bit bigger.
And weekends like that help all of us do that. And I hope you touch on this, because I don't want your audience today to think it's not only this crazy elite stuffy group of people. I mean, there's 50 events.
You and I are the only stuffy elites.
Exactly. That's true. But there's 50 events for all ages, all opportunities, all kinds of, cars. You could go to this thing called they call it the Concours Lemon, like for lemon, which is a joke, obviously, thing where they have old junky cars and they do a Concours, and it's just fun because you can't take yourself too seriously with this kind of thing. So there's things for everybody. There's things for kids, for men, for women, for everybody. So it's a fun weekend. And yes, of course, it's amazing luxury and amazing things, but it really is for all demographics, for sure, if you're interested.
What would you advise someone, maybe someone thinking about going for their first time?
Yep.
What's the first piece of advice you would give them?
I would say, and I think you'll agree, number one, what are the kind of 4 core events or the things not to miss? And I think the Quail, for sure. Let's just talk about that. Did you not love the Quail? Incredible.
I thought that was, gosh, there were so many highlights. But by far my best day event.
I agree.
Well, it's tough. That and the Sunday,
Pebble is pretty nice.
Yeah,
but if you
they're different.
Sat at Pebble, I think the Quail wins, and I think
correct.
You had such a great experience. But Quail's number one, not to be missed. Obviously, Pebble Beach, and then there's which is Sunday, which is basically the Super Bowl of the weekend. But it's like going to the Super Bowl. There's parties that lead up to the Super Bowl and pre-events, and some of those events can be better. But the Quail's on Friday, obviously on Sunday, the Pebble Beach Concours. But around that, for example, I didn't even tell you about this because I haven't gone in a few years, but they have a thing at dawn that Haggerty Insurance puts on, where you literally get out to Pebble at 5 a.m. I know it sounds crazy. And people go out there and you watch all the cars roll out. And those that are there first at 5 a.m., I think, make a number. They give, people these 500 baseball caps that cannot be bought, cannot be purchased. And it's an amazing thing to see that. So for a first timer, for sure, like it's an indoctrination to go. So that's kind of a fun thing. And I personally believe the auctions and at least attending one night of the auctions is a hilarious, just honestly, I was talking to my buddy Bruce Meyer from Los Angeles, and we had popcorn and a Coke, and we were sitting in the front row of one of the auction companies, and we watched that Sally car go to auction, which was for charity, which was lovely. And let's just say it was a $300,000 Porsche. It had maybe some special edition things, which maybe raised it to a cost of $380,000, which of course is not cheap. And the car went for $3.6 million because it went to charity, which was amazing. Awesome. And so those kind of highlights for the weekend, it was called the Sally car from the movie from Pixar, which shows that there's all kinds of things. And that's like obviously a kid's thing, right? Meaning that's not a kid's thing, that $3.6 million, but it was inspired by the fascination with that animated movie and all of the children's kind of love for that film. And then all of us that are adults that either took our kids when they were little kids to that movie, or some of the people that were in the room were kids during the movie. So I wouldn't miss the auctions. So Quail, Sunday, Pebble Beach, the auctions. And then there's really, honestly, each and every manufacturer does a fantastic job in their own tents and their own booths during the course of the week, during the daytime, whether it's at the Bentley House. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
I was going to say, just so we paint a good visual, this isn't like if you're hearing the word booth or exhibit, it's not like walking through a trade show and seeing like some 10 by 10 booth. I mean, the Bentley House was a mansion that they had then built onto the back, their own bar system. And I mean, it was just wild. I mean, it was awesome.
It was amazing. And it really, all those different, whether it's Lamborghini, Ferrari, Porsche, they capture their customers and they inspire them. And it's just a great download of each and every brand. And so I wouldn't miss that. I'd make sure to have a free day to go enjoy all those different homes or events.
So I already got my thank you card. I mean, how nice, a handwritten thank you card.
Love it.
Following that event, which you don't see a lot of anymore. Not a lot of people send out nice handwritten stuff anymore. So that was nice to get.
Very nice.
What's your favorite? What's your absolute favorite for you personally? What's your favorite part? I think you said the auctions, but you're big on collecting. I like you've been doing that before you.
I was doing that before. I like the action. The auctions are my favorite part. I see a lot of my friends. Okay. It's a very, very absolutely exhilarating environment. People's heart rates are up. There's competition in the room. It's fun to see people battling for cars. It's great to see the consigners do great when they sell them. It also is, as Wide World of Sports used to say, sometimes there's the agony of defeat, and you see a consigner who has just gotten smashed selling his car, but you win some, you lose some. And I've been on both sides of those situations. But and now the new thing, one last thing I left out with the auctions is, there's a lot of new players. And with the digital, just like we're doing today, there's auction companies and the digital space coming in, and people were saying that these in-person auctions are going to die. And whether it's P-Car Market or Bring a Trailer or these other online auction situations, all of which are great and all of which have opportunities. The in-person auctions are alive and well. The rooms were packed. It was standing room only. And for me, it's the most exhilarating part of the weekend. Again, it's also a great way to finish your day. You're outside in the beautiful sunshine all day, and then you come in and hang out with your buddies and have some popcorn and a Coke and watch these auctions go. It's actually a lot of fun.
So one of the things that online stuff will not be able to duplicate is going to be just the experience.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
and let's face it. I mean, could they take the auctions and go 100% online? Absolutely. But that isn't going to change because that's not why people are necessarily, it's not the only reason people are going out there.
So
It
true.
is, there are so many benefits to talking with people and growing your network and surrounding yourself with the right people. And I think, a lot, even like Derby, I think more so out there in the car, in Monterey Car Week than Derby. You've got to be in the right, at Churchill, you got to be in the right room.
Yeah.
You can't, for lack of a better word, you don't want to be with the track degenerates, the ones that are there every day. So, but I think when out here at Monterey, I think you're just surrounded. I met business owners in LA that had nothing to do with the group I was with or the package I was with out there, all at Spanish Bay. Met all of them there at the fire pit, different night. I mean, I can tell you, I didn't want, the only complaint I had was the inn at Spanish Bay is very strict that the fire pit shuts down at 12.
Yeah. It could have gone till 3 a.m. every night.
No one wanted to leave. Everyone was having good conversation. We could have kept going, but they were very strict and it was cold. So, I mean, once the fire pit goes, it's time to retire. But that would have been my only complaint. Yeah. What do you think someone might find surprising about Monterey Car Week if this was their first time going?
Well, a couple things. One, also, you mentioned Trish earlier and bringing her next year, which I'm really glad that you are. I've brought my wife many times. There's something for everybody. So I'll just give you an example. We left out the whole thing that downtown Carmel is hopping. And during the daytime, the coffee shops and the restaurants and the shops and, the classic cars parked on the side of the street and just the festive environment is like being at, Mardi Gras, a little different than Mardi Gras, but I'm just saying it's very, very festive and very lovely and fun. And so you don't even have to like cars to have a great time over the weekend. Yeah. So, I think the different things that we haven't touched on, again, I think the changes, I think we a little bit touched on it, but when we first started going, it was not corporate. Now, let me be clear. I don't think that's a negative to say it's become more corporate. I actually think it's gotten better because the corporate involvement has meant that the customer and participant and experience of those that attend is better because the money that's invested in the entertainment is absolutely, top notch, Four Seasons level quality by everybody because the competition amongst the manufacturers and the other sponsors that are there, they all want that guest experience. So I think that is really what has improved over the years and some of the things that we left out. It's just one of the best experiences.
It's funny you say that because it is almost like I felt like OEMs, they're not just competing in the cars, they're also now competing for your attention and who will walk away saying they had the most fun at whatever event, right? Because I remember people saying, are you going to this party? No, I'm going to this party. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be doing that. Exactly. And certain OEMs hype their party. I think Lamborghini must have been doing something very special that year from a party. I didn't go to that party, but I heard a lot of people talking about going to it. Yes. The Bentley party was phenomenal.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah, unbelievable. The hospitality from people that aren't necessarily in the hospitality industry was off the charts.
Yeah.
God, they were just I'd never met these people before. They were so nice and sincere and just genuine people. I absolutely loved it. I will never say enough to explain how much I enjoyed that experience.
I've never done it, but there are people, this is kind of funny, and it's not funny because it's the golf capital of the world. But a whole thing I don't do because I'm not a golfer is there's a whole other parallel track where people are out there doing all the things you and I did. And at the same time, they've got 18 holes in the afternoon or in the
Well,
morning.
see, what package is that? I would
exactly. No, but I mean, until the day before or maybe 2 days before, Pebble Beach is actually open. Spyglass is open. Spanish, they're all open playing. And so guys that are big golfers that also are either car guys or luxury guys, they're out there and they're like, oh, you got a tee time at 6 a.m. and then I'll be at the Quail by 2. And I'm making that up, but they do multiple things. So that's really, really cool. That
I wonder how they got on. Like at what point, I wonder, do they close Pebble?
Pebble's closed at least by Saturday, but I'm pretty sure you can play golf on Friday. Almost positive.
The Friday before.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I know for sure that they play golf all the way up to, it could even be open Saturday, but I'm 90% sure up until Friday you can play golf.
That's got to be a tough tee time.
Yeah, and then there's just a turnaround. So for example, if you remember where the McLaren hospitality building was, I don't know if that's on 17 or whatever hole that's on. It is physically off the course, so you can still play golf. It's just like it's right on the edge. So all that kind of stuff is, you're like, no way you can still play golf, but they do play golf. So up until a couple days before,
I'll remember that. I don't know if my wife will appreciate that if I do that, but maybe she could drive the cart and drink wine.
That's right. But you can do it. I mean, it is available. I'm just trying to think. And the only other thing, well, not the only other thing, but just the different, the collector situations, if you think about the original meeting, which is still the meeting, the amount of money they raise for charity, whether it's the cars that go to auction or at Pebble Beach on Sunday, I mean, it is a huge amount of money being raised for charity, which is a great thing and philanthropic. And that's an underestimated giant benefit to the world that's created that weekend. And I applaud the organizers of the Pebble Beach Concord Elegance, the Quail ownership, the Kaduri family, and the Peninsula hotels at the Quail, and obviously all the car manufacturers and the others that participate, like Porsche did with the Sally and the amount of money that they raised. It is fabulous. So it really is an amazing amount of money raised for charity that weekend.
I want to make sure it's not, when you or I are talking about all this, the money obviously there that week it's
insane. Yeah.
It doesn't really even matter how much you make. I mean, I can promise you, no matter what you're making, unless you're Elon Musk, there's someone there that probably makes more.
No question.
I mean,
there was one guy bigger with a bigger boat or whatever,
There was one guy you introduced me to. I'm not going to say names or what company, but he sold his company for multi-billions.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of those guys out there. There's a bunch of, NFL, NBA, MLB team owners. I mean, the whole thing.
But here's the thing. It's not about that, right? It's about surrounding yourself with the type of people that have the mindset to accomplish that. These are people that dream big. They act big. And what I mean by acting big, they're not afraid to take action on what their dreams are, and they pursue it and they're relentless in that pursuit. And that doesn't mean, and they do it in an ethical, good way. These are good people out there. And so I want to make sure that this show, you and I, we're not sitting here saying, oh, go out there because of the money. It's the opportunities about being around such great minds
that are doing great things in the world and doing great things for the world.
Correct. And so I want to surround myself with the right people. Anytime I look at any accomplishment I've had, I can almost always point to, I was around this person, this person, this person. And if I ever got into a funk, if I ever went into a little rut, maybe for a year or two where the growth wasn't as high, I can also look backwards and say, maybe I should have spent more time with some of these other people.
It's true.
And so, I've said this multiple times on this show. my biggest regret over the last, not the last 20 years, but my let's say my first 20 years in business out of the 30 years, my first 20 years was thinking I could do everything on my own and not paying attention to growing my network and building relationships with the right people. And I was just ultra competitive, saying, oh, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And I would have gotten so much, I would have achieved much higher levels of success. And I would have, more importantly, I would have gotten there so much more quicker, and I would have enjoyed the process much more, surrounding myself with the right friends and influences and mentors than trying to learn everything and going through that learning curve.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Good point. I mean, we can all be inspired every single day. And I think your point that you made is so true. These guys are not out there just flexing. They're literally out there saying, hey, I'm building a water treatment plant in Africa while I'm over there doing this and doing that. I mean, it's like, wow, world changing things. And yeah, by the way, I also collect cars. And by the way, also, which is cool.
The guy I mentioned that you introduced me to, he was wearing a raggedy T-shirt. I promise you, if he was walking through, there is nobody that thought he had a dime. That was what's great. But talk about that a little bit. How has that kind of changed over the years? Because I feel like, well, look at you and I. I'm in my Move Crush Count T-shirt. You're all buttoned up, looking sharp as usual.
Coming on your show, and I felt that I had to give a Pebble Beach quail inspired outfit for today. So you inspired me.
How has the event itself changed over the years? Like you said, more corporate, but like, what else?
So I would say, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, again, all those years ago, 20 years ago, almost, when you started, like, no traffic, easy to get around. You definitely really have to plan, as you very well saw. It's definitely good if you can go with a few buddies, or if you're with your wife and another couple. The less cars you have to drive and take, the better, because you're going to be in your car a long time getting from place to place. It's just a matter of what it is.
I have to tell you.
You didn't have bad time?
I had zero traffic issues.
Wow, that's great.
I was so mentally prepared.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Derby.
I did warn you. I was like, it's bad. Well, that's great.
I had zero issues for any event.
That's good.
It was unbelievable. So I absolutely love it. Let me ask, what final thoughts do you have? What can you say to motivate more people? You talk with a lot of passion. It's easy to see why you're successful. You're very passionate about what the things you do. This type of event created a new opportunity for you because it introduced you to a business that probably, I don't want to say it wasn't on your radar, but it
definitely was a big component, I would say. You're right.
Yeah. And so what can you say to motivate other business leaders to say, hey, get out here, you owe this. This needs to be a bucket list item for you.
Yeah. Again, I think going back to the first thing you said, this is Kentucky Derby. This is Super Bowl. This is World Series. Yeah. This is just, I don't care whether you cannot stand cars, aren't interested in cars. I think anybody will have a great time that weekend. So that's just one reason why you're in a beautiful place in the gorgeous United States of America up there in Northern California. The weather's fantastic. It's the best part about it is the people. So I can't say enough. And the people inspired me, the friendships, reconnecting with those friendships once a year. And I've always said this, I'm like sad on Sunday when it's over. I can't wait till next year. So
that's how I was.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I'm so glad you had fun. I'm so glad you had fun, because I've told at least 10 people that I know would have serious interest. I'm like, man, I cannot believe. And then some of my friends are out in California and they live right there. How in the heck is that even possible? To be in the auto business and not out there? All right, Todd, I want to thank you for an incredible interview. You bring the passion, buddy. I always love interviewing you because you always talk about good stuff. It's easy to see why you're successful. And when we talk about surrounding yourself with the right people, if you have an opportunity to surround yourself with the Todd Blues of the world, make sure you do it. So great seeing you, Scott. I love your show. I love what you're doing. And I've always loved your work Always
Thank you, brother.
J&L and everything else. So thank you for having me. It's fun. Always have a good time on the show.
Thank you for sharing your expertise and your knowledge so graciously. I want to thank the Move Crush Count audience for joining us for this amazing presentation about Monterey Car Week and how it can help you inspire and create new opportunities for yourself. Make sure you follow and subscribe Move Crush Count, the podcast, on movecrushcount.com, and as well as you can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure you join our groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, where experts and business leaders like Todd are on there. And if you got questions for him, you can throw them out there, and hopefully he can get in there. And make sure you tag him on those things so he gets the notification. And then he'll come in there and answer any questions you might have. Do me a huge favor, everyone. Share the episode. Our growth comes from people like yourself sharing it with your friends and your family and your colleagues. We don't spend a dime promoting the show. So if you could share it, that'd be great. Today's interview was sponsored by J&L Marketing. J&L is a digital and direct marketing agency that delivers results by helping you outsmart your toughest competitors so you don't have to outspend them. We're going to do one thing real quick. We're going to give a free, what we call, the J&L Marketing's got an espionage report. We're going to give away that free to the first 7 people that DM me personally, either on LinkedIn, Instagram, or on Messenger with Facebook. So if you first 7 people that message me is going to get this report. I want you to imagine for a second, if you had, Todd, you used to have stores. Imagine if you had the ability to spy on your toughest competitors, your prospects, or even your own company without spending any money or taking up your own time. And what I'm talking about specifically is if you want to dominate online today with digital marketing, it's critical that you know which offers, your toughest competitors are running. More importantly, which ones are working and stealing market share from you. And so that can take a lot of time trying to figure out that and go through that. We can do it quickly for you, painless, and we'll do it for free. And it'll show you where your biggest opportunities are. And it's something, no matter what agency you're doing, you could take this information, work with them, and see instant results from it. So that's J&L Marketing's online espionage report. It'll save you a ton of time, money. You'll receive insights that'll deliver the most actionable, tactical, and timely digital marketing tips you need to move the crowd, crush your competition, and count the money. So private message me, request your free online espionage report now. I am Scott Joseph. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Thank you, Todd.